we bring in a friend who we've known for years and years and years. He's an author, relationship therapist, Dr. R.G. Alan Wilson.
Some expert advice on how we can all talk to them. Joining us now is relationship expert Dr. R.G. Alan Wilson. She's the author of Courageous Conversations Connect. Good morning, R.G.
Doctor, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Janelle. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
And as we mentioned, a lot of people just dealing with anxiety during all of this. What are your suggestions?
Some of the things that we need to remember is that this is temporary. This is temporary inconvenience for long-term gain. And as long as we stay healthy, Janelle, then everything else is recoverable.
Talk to your children about what's happening right now. What are the best ways to do that?
There's some do's and don'ts, right? So you want to tell them that you're going to be here. We're going to be okay. Kids want to know that they're secure and they're safe. So predictability, structure, and consistency. You also want to let them know you have a plan. And even if you don't have a plan, tell them that you're working on one. And good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. This is Dr. RG, yours truly here. We are on the Courageous Conversations Connect Space Quarantine Talks. This is May 28th, 2020. We are still in the month that honors Mental Health and Awareness Month. This is also we're still in the 11th week of quarantine in the state of Pennsylvania. I believe they're supposed to go from red to yellow on June 5th, and then we'll see if we get to green or when that happens. Although there's some day 42. This is day 42. So we're week 11 of a quarantine and day 42 of the quarantine talks. It's April 28th, 2020, and this is yours truly. So listen, this is what I want you guys to do. I want you to, right now, go over to tag us and share. Give me some thumbs up and some algorithms as you all are coming in. We're waiting. Charla, some thumbs up, hearts, smiley faces for the algorithms. I was doing too many things at one time. And then I heard Morgan sigh over there like, what are you doing? So sorry. I still have, give me some algorithms with my coffee. Give me some algorithms with my coffee. So good morning, Charla. I see Teresa is here. I know that there's some folks on IG as well. Tag a friend, let them know we're here. This is the crew, Connecting Relationships for Epic Wins. If you have not yet done this, please go over to our YouTube page and subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can get notifications of all the things that we're going to be doing. Also, if you're on Facebook, type in subscribe to the message section, and that way you'll get notifications and promotions that we're on. Sometimes it's at the last minute. We were called at the last minute yesterday to do NBC. Talking about that, and we'll be unpacking a little bit of that more today as well. So as we have more people coming in, let's take a quick break from our sponsors. We'll be right back, so stay with us. The sunshine inside. Well, speaking of bringing sunshine inside, this is the Courageous Conversations Connect Space, our quarantine talks. This is week 11 of quarantine, day 42, and I am Dr. RG. So welcome to the show. It's May 28th, 2020. Yeah. May 28th, 2020. I always, it's when you're in quarantine, it's hard, sometimes the dates kind of flow together a little bit. The months flow together. Who would have thought that the first day I think of our quarantine was, for me, March 17th, and it's almost like 3 months later. I think April, May, June, 2.5 months later. Who knew that it was going to be 2.5 months later? And we thought it was going to be 2 weeks. That's when we started quarantine talks. The second week of quarantine, and we were like, we'll do it for a couple of weeks, and here we are 2.5 months later. So such as life. Good morning, sunshine. My bonus daughter, Jessica, is on. Thanks for joining. Give my grandson a big hug from Gigi. I haven't seen him. I miss him. We're going to have our regular weekly connections because this is just not working for me anymore. I've been trying to just be good, and when I say weekly connections, it's going to be on Zoom, but it beats a blank. So hopefully I get my time to do my virtual hug this weekend with my grandson, Jay. So anywho, let's get into this. We've got a lot to unpack today. Bishop Sean Bartley is on. He did an amazing job yesterday. We had a great interview. We're going to, need maybe his help a little bit in the chat today as well, because we're talking specifically about racial and cultural barriers. Remember, all week, we've been trying to unpack barriers, saying how do we break barriers and how do we build bridges, right? Not bypass the bridge, but build the bridge and break the barriers. And we started off sort of talking about, breaking the barriers around communication. And then we moved into yesterday talking about institutionalized and structural barriers, right? Or institutional and structural barriers. And today we're talking about racial and cultural barriers. And I think it's very timely with everything that's going on in the world, and with all of the atrocities, with all the tragedy, with all the trauma that is taking place. We need to keep these conversations going. And so we had another topic in mind, but we felt like we needed to specifically talk about racial and cultural barriers because there's a lot going on. So we're going to get into our posture right now. Whatever you want to do, you wiggle, shake, relax, shake it off, loosen yourself up. We're going to do that. Put your middle finger to your thumb, put your hands over one hand over the other and on your lap, or put your hands to the side so that we can start breathing. Put in the chat who you are breathing for, right? I'm breathing for the family of George Floyd, and I'm breathing for the family of Ahmaud Arbery. Those are the two families that I'm breathing for, specifically because we were traumatized by watching the film over and over and over again. Thank goodness that the video. Thank goodness that these two atrocities were videotaped because we wouldn't know. But I'm also breathing for all the other families that have these tragedies happen and they're not on video, so we don't know about them, as well as the essential workers and the persons that are, in harm's way due to COVID-19. Listen, there is going to be a couple more spikes over the summer, and there's going to be a second wave. And they are saying that we're okay. We're about to go to yellow, then green, and people can go back out business as usual. I don't believe it. And we need to talk about that. So those are the persons that I'm breathing for. Tell me who you're breathing for and who you're breathing with. If it's your family, we cannot take breath lightly. Breath is life. And as we saw on that tape, that young man was breathing, saying he couldn't breathe, very much like Eric Gardner, and he was also calling for his mother. So let's breathe. Have the sound of my voice. I'm going to count to 3. Nicole says breathing for health of Black people. Yes, because we are having some mental health and physical health challenges these days with all the disparities and all the atrocities and all the tragedy and the trauma. So let's breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. We're breathing in oxygen to go to our essential organs like our heart and our brains and our lungs and all those essential organs that need to operate in order for us to function well. We have to have oxygen, good oxygen in our bodies in order to live. We're breathing out carbon dioxide, but we're also breathing in hope, love, peace, serenity, kindness, generosity. We're breathing in all of those positive affirmations, and we're breathing out anxiety, worry, fear, anger, resentment, pain, all of that we're breathing out in order to be healthy. All right. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in through the nose. And out through the mouth. Breathe in through the nose. and out through the mouth. Breathe in through the nose. Morgan is helping. And out through the mouth. Breathe in through the nose. And out through the mouth. One last time, make it count, crew. Breathe in. And out. Very good. Excellent. Keep doing that throughout the day. Breathing in all of that and thinking, getting in your posture and thinking about all of the persons that are not breathing, do not have the opportunity to breathe, are either sick or what's worse in this case is having the life stomped out of you, taken from you senselessly. So let's unpack this. Today, I want to hear your stories specifically. We are talking about cultural and racial barriers. I'm going to give you some ideas, some tips, some things that you can do to engage in the conversation. But there's a lot going on, okay? There's an awful lot going on. So let's start with I want to start with some good stuff, right? So there's a couple things that are happening in the city or close to Philadelphia. There is a food distribution happening today in Willow Grove Park Mall. That's where we used to play when it used to be Six Gun Territory, where it used to be amusement park. They're giving out food for anybody that needs it. So I wanted to make sure that announcement happened. I also believe that Dr. Ayla Stanford is she's going to be talking to the media today at Salem Baptist Church, where the pastor, Marshall Mitchell, is the senior pastor, talking about the implications for the work that they've been doing as the Black Doctors Consortium. They, I think to date, have tested over 5,000 people. It's a grassroots effort. They had no money initially. They did a GoFundMe. They took 2 days for them to put this together, and they hit the streets because they wanted to give to our people, those Black, those brown people, those poor people that were not otherwise able to be tested. I think they were at Enon today, and or the other day, I think it was Tuesday, every other day there's someplace else even throughout the weekends testing. So that's an initiative that we are doing. Please make sure that you share this. We want other people to get this information. And if they can't sign on because they're working or they're with their children, then if you share it, then they can benefit from this information as well.
And invite them to invite their friends to the page.
Yeah, please. Yes. And please invite your friends to this page. You can come on. We are streaming through IG as well as Facebook, the Ask Dr. Argie, AskDrArgie, and as well as YouTube. Tonight, there's also going to be two events that are happening. One with Sherry Craig. She's going to be having Pastor Alan E. Waller, our pastor, as well as Pastor Marshall Mitchell, on talking about the state of churches and opening back up. And they sent a letter with their position from the pastor's perspective about reopening church. They state that the church was never closed and it was always essential. We just worship differently, and we will do it in a way that is healthy for people. So that'll be really interesting. It comes on at 7:30 on the Sherry Talk show with Sherry Gregg. I want to say Sherry Gregg. And then also Taraji P. Henson at 3:00. She's going to have a show it's called Lock Down the Rise of Violence and Domestic Violence. And it's going to be on her IG page based on her, sponsored by her foundation, the Boris L. Henson Foundation. So I wanted to bring that information to you all. So, okay, listen, I want to know how you are feeling. Last night, I did a segment on NBC, and it was talking about the fallout, the mental health toll that watching these videos go viral of Black people being assaulted, often killed, like George Floyd, the other night on Monday night. He was screaming for his mother and he couldn't breathe. And for 8 minutes, this officer had his foot on his neck. You could see that he was not doing well. He said everything hurt. People were videotaping, thank goodness for that. And they were pleading with him to take his foot off of his neck. We saw similar things like that with Freddie Gray in Baltimore, with Walter Scott in the Carolinas, with Sandra Bland, with Eric Gardner in New York City. And then even on the other day, we saw a video of, her name is Amy Cooper. She has since been fired, who basically called the cops and escalated her, even a tone of her voice, saying that she was being attacked by a man, which was not true because the man was actually videotaping her saying this to the officers. But that could have been deadly for that man whose name was Christian Cooper, no relation, who was simply bird watching. So, you know, I want to hear what your thoughts are. I feel like this is a healing space where we're having these quarantine talks while we're sitting at home, working, toiling, trying to make a difference, whether we're working from our computers or whether we're essential workers. We need to really unpack what this is doing when we're continuously having to watch the death toll go up. Although also yesterday, it hit 100,000 deaths. 3 months ago, literally 3 months ago, we were told that there were 15 cases and that this would just go away. It would like poof and go away, this COVID-19. And 100 days later, we now have 100,000 deaths. In addition to what's going on in the community, if you're, you know, for many Black and brown people, they feel like, or we feel like, we are disenfranchised. We are othered. We are, you know, there's a disproportionate amount of services that we get to have access to due to multiple reasons, whether it be socioeconomic level or whether it be that we're just turned away literally because we were told in the very beginning that you couldn't be asymptomatic, but then, and get tested. But now we know that many people who are asymptomatic are the ones that are the super spreaders. So this is happening to us. This is happening with us. And we need to be able to really process what toll it's taking on our mental health and our well-being, and how do we have these courageous conversations, quite frankly, about race, about our culture, about the disparities, the health disparities. You know, it was no surprise to us, right? There was no surprise to us when a couple of weeks after they started saying, well, wear a mask, don't wear a mask, you know, disperse them to no more than 250 and then 50 and then 10. You know, it was always kind of like, oops, I made a mistake. Or actually from the White House, there's never an apology, but there was sort of this, oh, now pay attention to this information. Well, no, let's change gears. Wear the mask, don't wear the mask. So there are all of these messages, but the ultimate message for a lot of Black and brown people who have experienced oppression and degradation and discrimination and othering and marginalization, for all of us, in many cases, we feel like the deck is stacked against us. And then we're experiencing this pandemic. And in the middle of the pandemic, we see these visual, viral videos of our lives being snatched for no reason. I want to hear what your thoughts about this is in this healing space. Megan says, Sylvia says, I'm so angry, right?
I want to know what you mean by that.
Can you unpack that a little bit, Sylvia? You know, we can assume, because anger is an emotion and we need to talk about that, but can you unpack a little bit? Are you angry because of watching the videos? Are you angry because there's more and more Black people, in particular Black men, out there that are being assaulted? Share a little bit of war, because I will tell you, I'm angry too, and I'm sad as well. And part of that has to do with the fact that, you know, oftentimes there's the statement that we can't walk while Black, drive while Black, golf while Black, drink coffee while Black. Now we can't bird watch while Black. We can't sit while Black. We can't breathe while Black. So what can we do? You know, and so it feels like, you know, this atrocity of racism is continuing. Sylvia says, I'm exhausted while being Black in this country. There is a sense of exhaustion for us. This is why we're having this space, right? Last night, I basically said that we've got to create spaces for us to process. Now we got to take action, and we got to take action in a healthy way, right? We can't just be here processing. Once we process, remember we said in the very beginning, we can turn pain into power if we appreciate the process. So once we continue this process of talking about how we're feeling, because that's really, really important to externalize our feelings, our emotions. If we don't, then we keep them inside. But once we do that, then we've got to figure out how to galvanize and take action, right? Yesterday, or the 26th, was the last day that you could actually sign up for your, to do your ballot, mail-in ballot. I hadn't gotten mine, and I was worried. And I told Morgan, I said, if I don't get it, then I'm going to have to go to the voting place and stand in line and try to do my best. But I will not allow not getting it to prevent me from casting my vote. Megan says, my good friend called me yesterday in the midst of a panic attack because she went down the media rabbit hole with George Floyd. And we breathed and spoke positive affirmations. Whew. That requires a breath, Megan. I want to take a breath for all of us. Let's take a breath. Reason why I wanted to take a breath was, I'm not sure exactly who you're speaking of, but I saw a Facebook exchange last night as well. Think about it. We're working all day. We're trying to take care of our families and our kids. And then for some people, this is a form of communication through social media. And I saw a similar kind of post where someone went down the rabbit hole with a person who started to, and I didn't read all of it. I'll be honest. I was, very, very exhausted last night. So I didn't read the continual exchange, because we have to set some parameters and some boundaries around our consumption. And so that was just too much for me. But I did send to my friend a quick text to say, text to say, like, listen, you can't go down the rabbit hole with this foolishness. You cannot, the ignorance is abound everywhere. And quite frankly, that is what some of those persons want, is for us to engage in that combat. We are at war here. I heard Don Lemon say the other day that we're fighting two viruses here. I feel like we're fighting two wars. We're fighting COVID-19, which is this invisible enemy. And then we're also fighting this war, this virus of racism and the inequities that are abound, and the lack of acknowledgement of it. Sylvia says, all of it. I'm upset. I fear for my young nephews. And then Sylvia also says, we are hated for just our skin color. Who has given the right to anyone? Gotcha. Who has given that right to anyone? This is not new. We as people of color, we understand this. And we need everyone, all hands on deck. Black, white, we say Mongoloid, Negroid, Caucasoid. Those are the three races. So black, white, yellow. Mongoloid, right? Caucasoid, Negroid. If you look in the dictionary, you look in the definition of the three races, we get it confused because we kind of lump, comport, if you will, the ethnic backgrounds and the nationalities and the races all together. Really, there are three. There's a black, there's white, and then there's, I would say yellow, if you will. And then there's brown people as well. And we put them together because we're people of color. And it's really up to you to determine and to self-identify what race do you belong to, right? That said, we need to also think about the implications for how that impacts the larger discourse, if you will. And do you as a person of color, as a black person, as a brown person, do you stand in solidarity with all of those persons, because I was reading a couple articles yesterday, and some of them talked about the fact that the trauma that we experience, even vicariously, has a lot to do with the fact that we understand that for us, for our children, for our family members, we can walk down the street and possibly be killed simply for the color of our skin. That doesn't have the same implications for our white brothers and sisters. It just doesn't. And not in this country in particular. And so we need everybody on, all hands on deck. We need to have the dialogue and come to some common ground, because we need our white brothers and sisters as our allies against the atrocities of racism. We don't need to continue to be at odds. This is about everyone having equity and equality in these yet to be United States. Nicole says, I've challenged my white woman friends to speak up and speak out. Don't feel sorry for me. Racism is a global tragedy. I have got to stay off the internet, and yesterday had me in a ball. Yeah, I get it, Mama Stokes. And she says she's angry and sad. And those are real emotions. Like, for example, yesterday when I was on NBC, one of the things I said, and she asked me, Jacqueline London asked me, how do you talk to your children and about all these things that are going on? And I said, we got to have our conversations, the courageous conversations with ourselves, with our families, with our children. We also have to acknowledge the emotion. If you don't acknowledge the emotion will eat you up. That anger, that sadness, that rage that can well up inside of you, that bitterness, all of that will eat us up. And then we become our secondary perpetrators, if you will. So we got to journal about it. You got to talk about it. You have to process. If you cannot process with somebody in your own household, then reach out to a friend, a confidant, a spiritual advisor. We were talking every day. We're processing here with our crew. We're processing here with our crew. This is the safe space for us to process what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, how you're feeling it, and also, quite frankly, get tips, get resources from myself and others. Bishop Bartley was on talking about, from a spiritual perspective, how he helps his congregants, and also specifically how he, as a clergy person, gets refueled and renewed for himself so that he can continue to support other people. This is real, right? And when we push our emotions down and we don't deal with them, then we can have the experience of imploding. That looks like depression. It looks like anxiety. It looks like fear. Oftentimes, as Megan was talking about, it looks like having panic attacks, which are real. Now, the panic attack in and of itself may not kill you, but if you have a heart arrhythmia due to the panic attack, that could kill you, right? So we need to find ways to soothe ourselves, because we are experiencing not just post-traumatic stress disorder, right? PTSD. We're experiencing continual traumatic stress disorder, CTSD. Over and over and over, every single day that you turn on the news, every single day that you get a feed on your phone, on your Facebook or your Twitter feed or what have you, when you're seeing that the people that you love are either dying, or that you can't visit them, or that the death toll is going up, or that persons are being attacked in the hood, it reminds us that it could be us. It reminds us it could be someone that we love. It reminds us perhaps we may be triggered because it was somebody that we love, right? And so all of that is trauma. Share with us what you're doing. This space is not just a space for us to process, but it's also a space for us to heal. But in order to heal, you all know what I say, you have to feel, and we cannot heal what we do not reveal. The revealing part, the sort of purging, all last week, we took the week off so that I could, recalibrate and do some purging. And I recognized that I'd spend so much time doing that I didn't have enough time to sort of sit back and be still and sort of purge, not just my physical space, but purge my mental space, purge my mental health so that I could get back to a mental health and wellness space. This is about our crew, connecting relationships for epic wins, having the opportunity to share how we're feeling and move to a place of healing and wholeness. Yeah, babe.
Yeah, you got some comments here on
Sure.
IG, social IG, some love here. Let's see. First, Tara says, breathing for Aubrey and Floyd families that justice will be served. Let's see here. Breathing for me, my antibodies test came back negative. That was somebody named Willa Jean, 23.
Okay, gotcha. Willa Jean said anybody's test came back negative. Great.
Yes. And let's see what else. And then the first Tara also says, when the judicial part is completed, I don't want to read the father and son are acquitted or the officers are not guilty. This has to stop.
Yes, absolutely. So this is how we stop it. We activate, we take action, we organize, we have conversation, and then we move into an action. We've got to write our legislators. We've got to vote. We have to galvanize. We can't sit silent. We have to speak up. We have to show up. We have to stand up for one another. We have to feel that we're aligned in solidarity with one another, and we have to do it in a way that's healthy and whole, because there's strength in numbers. And we as Black, brown people are in this together, and we need our white allies to be in the fight with us, the same way that we did we had Black and brown and white people together during the civil rights movement, and yellow people. My treatment plan: avoid social media, journaling, sound therapy, yoga, meditation, physical touch with hubby. Awesome. Yes, Megan. Yes. So, and Megan reminds us that when it's getting overwhelming and when we've had enough, right? When we feel like we are just to our limit, that we need to get back to some basics. Start breathing, start putting our oxygen mask on first, have physical touch if we can with someone that we love. Do therapy. My prayer would be that everybody that needs it would, and we're all going to need it, we all need it now, would seek out a good therapist that could be helpful with them in terms of processing this. This is a therapeutic platform in many ways because it's about healing. Yet for many of us, we need more intensive one-on-one therapeutic intervention to help us to process our pain, help us to grieve our losses. Grieving is important, right? Mourning is important. It allows us to really articulate in mind, body, and spirit what those losses have meant to us, and how to begin a new chapter of adapting to maybe a new norm with that person spiritually with us, even if they're not physically with us. So the elevated stress levels for many of us are very, very grave, if you will. And it brings on hormones like cortisol and adrenaline that then shut down other hormones and, quite frankly, other things that will help us to live, like our respiratory system and our digestive system, our ability to sleep and eat. All of those things get compromised when our stress levels are elevated. It also impacts our parasympathetic nervous system. So we need to do these things to help ourselves as well as help other people. Nicole says, I am so thankful for you and this crew, honored to be here with you all. Well, we are thankful for you too, and thank you for saying that, Mama Stokes.
Remember, go over to and submit on the message center and submit their subscribe in.
So if you guys want to become a crew member, you can go over to the message box in the Facebook and just type subscribe into the message box. That way you become a crew member. And we also make sure that you get all the notifications, even at the last minute. If we are asked to do something, we make sure that you get those notifications, because interesting enough, sometimes people will DM me and they'll say, oh, I didn't know that you had a show, or I didn't know that you were on last night. Well, this is a way that you get the notifications of what things we're doing, both in this platform and outside of this platform. Please also go over to our YouTube page. It's Ask Dr. Argie, AskDrArgie, right? Not spelled out doctor. And subscribe, because we got lots of content there, and as well as new and old. And we have really some innovative things that we're actually planning. We're planning some other additional master classes. We're planning some seminars and some workshops for you guys. So just go over there and subscribe, and then hit that notification on the YouTube page. Also, even in this platform, in real time, tag someone, share, like, give me the likes, the thumbs ups. Let us know, and let us, the system know that we are on here for a reason, and we want other people to experience it. So I wanted to share with you, in addition to the elevated stress levels, the fear, the anxiety, and the rage, when we're experiencing this kind of disparity, this kind of discrimination due to the color of our skin, due to racial inequities, due to differences, we feel like we can't breathe in some ways, but we also feel like that we can't win in some ways. Now, that's a lie, but that's what happens to the psyche when we see these images over and over again, and it's not stopping. And it creates a depression. You can go from mild to moderate to major depression when we're feeling like we have hopelessness and helplessness, and sometimes even voicelessness. So we're going to come back. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and talk about how do we elevate our voices, how do we galvanize, and how do we do the things that help us to be mentally well. So stay with us. We'll be right back. We're going to take a break.
Allison said,
hi, this is Dr. RG. I am back. I'm sorry, Morgan. Hold on for a second. This is Dr. RG. I'm back here, and this is the Courageous Conversations Connect space where we're doing our quarantine talks. We were just in the middle because what happens is IG is on a different stream, so they don't see the commercial. So I was asking Morgan to tell me who was commenting. So go ahead, Morgan.
So Allison says, my brother told me that my 5-year-old nephew had a meltdown yesterday after watching the news. My brother went for a walk around his neighborhood last night, and my nephew called him on the cell phone, crying because he thought something bad was going to happen to him. This is the fear. I mean, it's really having a toll on us.
Why don't you get on?
Yeah.
Why don't you get on? As we go into this, so I want Morgan to come on as a Black man in particular who has Black sons, adults, and also teenagers, and also, of course, our bonus daughter who has
a grandson.
Just had a child, Jace, who is our grandson, and the fear that takes place in our heart, spirit, and souls around thinking about maybe not being able to protect our loved one, or the anxiety of our loved ones, even children, watching the news or hearing our conversations. And then I'll share a little bit about what I think we can do. Morgan?
Well, I mean, it's just the overwhelming extra burden to live with as a Black man, with this reality that my very existence of my skin will evoke fear, for people to kind of hold back when they're around me, specifically white folks. Just who I am as a person evokes fear. And that's a heavy lift to carry. We all, as Black families, those of us who are parents, or we could be uncles and aunts, have had to talk with every Black child, more specifically Black male. Now it's even heightened because I think what's happening right now, it's the overwhelming volume of the volatile and the violence of what's been happening to us. I mean, it's the volume of it. You have Aubrey, you have, Floyd, you have so many of them, and it's coming back time after time after time. And we don't want to get it political because right now we're on a social platform. We don't want to get blocked, but you know what I mean. You know what I want to say. Okay, it starts from the top. Okay, When they give license that it's okay to say and do some things, it is what it is. You get what you get, okay? So we know what we have to do. So
Vote.
just vote, exactly. So here's the deal. What I'm trying to tell people to do is connect the dots. It's your voting power, and power also is linked to the economics of this country. This country only listens to economics. You got to vote, and then also vote with your pocketbook, where you spend your dollars. I would challenge any African American or Black person listening to this feed here, try your best to spend your dollars with Black folks first. Let's be real. Okay, try it. Do it. Try your best. And sometimes we challenge with the fact that, oh, well, people say, oh, well, it's, it's the quality of service isn't there, et cetera, et cetera. But the bottom line is, do your best to do your due diligence and spend your dollars with us first.
It would also help for our white brothers and sisters to spend their dollars
Exactly.
with persons of color or with African Americans to bolster the economy in those small businesses that have not come back or may not come back. We're talking about, there was an article, Morgan and crew, 75 things that white people can do for, let me see, I'm going to post it later. I did post it. So I want to get the title right. The 75 things I believe that white people could do to help Black people as it relates to racism. Because I think the issue is oftentimes that Black people are exhausted with talking about this to nauseam.
Right.
What it is. Yeah, it says, this is the article. It's white people do something. 75 things white people can do for racial justice. This is what I'll post it again. And everybody said yesterday that it was a really good article because we need to be solution oriented. Once we've processed our pain, and that will be a continual process, then what do we do to step up? And what do our white brothers and sisters do as well to step up in solidarity with us so that we really are all in this together, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think what's happening is that, again, getting back to that talk to Black males in your family, whatever age, the key is you want them to get home safely. Mm-hmm. So even though in the midst of being stopped and being disrespected, you have to understand that's the purpose. They're trying to instigate you to have a reaction.
Yes.
What you have to do is not to react. Mm-hmm. You have to comply. Hey, you got to ask the questions. Am I being arrested?
Live to fight another day.
Am I being detained? Mm-hmm. Yes. Comply and let them take you to jail. And then you bail yourself out. You fight from there. Okay. I was looking at something today. I forget who it was. A guy has a radio show. I can't remember what it is, but he said there's a device on your phone somewhere where you can actually, if you get stopped by the police, you can set it up on your phone, almost like those devices you hold your phone, holding whatever, and you type in live recording on Facebook and record the stop live. Okay, I know it's an extra step. We should not have to do it, but it's all about right now protecting yourself and being safe. You can get home to your family and fight a different way. Yeah. It's about strategy, being strategic, and understanding and practical tactics in order to keep yourself alive. So I would encourage you to talk to any male you have in your family, and forget about the machismo. Forget about the macho. I know you're being disrespected. You feel like your manhood is being taken away. Trust me, I've been stopped more in my younger years, and I know what that feels like. But the reality is I need to come back home to my wife over here, who I love dearly, and my children, and now my young king grandson, Jace, okay? It's my job and responsibility to make sure I share and give Jace all I can give him to understand how to navigate in this world that we're living in. And so, and that's really it. And listen, I keep running back to this. This book that RG wrote, Courageous Conversations Connect, could not be more on point in such a time as this. Read it, share it, and invite it, or actually purchase it for family and friends. So if they may not know about it, you can purchase it for them. All right. become part of the crew. This is about dialogue and having these conversations and creating a space for people to express themselves freely in a comfortable, safe environment, and to have access to a professional uh, doctor here that can help you navigate and come up with some talking points, some things to get you through the pain that we all are suffering through. We are suffering. We are suffering greatly, and nobody will take care of us but us. Let's be real about this. And I go back to what I said earlier. It's linking the economics with voting power. This is how this country is designed. It's designed to be based on economics. And if you don't understand how to speak economically, you will get no respect and you have no power. And then you will have no voice. Link economics with legislation, and then you'll begin to see some change. It's just the way it is. I know people want, I want to do this, I want to be philanthropic and all that great stuff. You can't go feed kids over in Africa in third world countries that are starving without money. Understand that. You can't feed the homeless or clothe the naked without money and resources. So for all those who are anti-economics and say that kind of stuff, I hear you and I understand why you say it, but that's not the reality, the whole reality of how this world works. And so, when we say we want to, like the Black Doctors Consortium, what do they have to do? Open up a GoFundMe page.
They need money.
Because it takes money to drive these things. Understand this, folks. You got to understand it. And our white brothers and sisters, let's be honest, they understand the power of money. Now, money can be used for good or evil.
Right.
So you have a choice in how you manipulate that money. So I'm not saying, money is all money is equal. That's the wrong approach.
It's how you use it.
That's how you use it. So I know about my soapbox, but it's touching everybody in a very visceral way, in a very personal way, because you're going to have to really stand up in this environment and be counted. Your voice has to be heard, whether it's from a physical standpoint or from a emotional standpoint or psychological standpoint. How you deal with your mind, what are you putting in your mind? This is forcing people. Now, for example, I'll give you that. A lot of guys are struggling. I say most, but a lot of guys are struggling because sports have come to a halt. Sports is a luxury. It's not a necessity in life. So people are being forced to have these conversations, to find alternative ways to entertain themselves and or / educate themselves. People are being forced to think and do some things on that Sunday afternoon where they be consumed for 10 hours of football to do something else and dig a little deeper.
Spend time with your wife or your children.
Or
reading.
Exactly.
Or listening to podcasts or TED Talks or something that's informational or inspirational or motivational.
But it's and also helping you understand how systems work and dealing with your environment and making a change. So that's all I got to say about that. I just felt compelled to share and to talk. I'm going to do a little something else on my personal page. So to kind of dig a little deeper with that. But, it's just a sad time, but we have got to step up or be stepped over. Step up or be stepped over. That's it. We got some comments here. Let's see what's going on. We got some serious. Let's go back. We'll be fair. Give everybody a shot to kind of get there.
Or you want to just highlight it and I'll.
So we're just there we go. Let's see what's happening here. Here we go. Okay. So good. Sylvia, what's Sylvia saying? Yes, I constantly have those conversations with my brothers and nephews. Probably a nuisance. As you say, nuisance, I guess. Probably ad nauseam. Got it. Okay, Sylvia. Well, listen, it's okay. It's okay. It is what it is. I'd rather you be a nuisance and continually say things ad nauseam than to not have them be aware and not understand that they're loved and that they care for and they need to really do their best to be safe. All right. Let's see what's happening here. Got Daryl says, great advice. Thanks, bro. Let's see what Carmen. You want to read Carmen's page?
We also need to support Black professionals, lawyers, accountants, therapists, dentists, optometrists, physicians, and psychologists. Thanks.
That's real. That's real.
Well, the thing about it is years ago, especially I can only speak for the mental health profession, we didn't have enough of us, right? And there were institutions that wouldn't let us in. Shout out to Dr. Marlene Watson, who is my mentor and my friend, was my professor. She was the chair of the Hahnemann and then Drexel Couple and Family Therapy Department for years. And she was fighting, we do need to be at the table. She was fighting to make sure that the playing field was more even, and that there were students that had access to these programs so that they could produce a clinician like myself, or like the many others now that are out there in the world as products of Drexel's Couple and Family Therapy Department that are very diverse. So, in order for us to support, we have to be available. We have to be well trained. We have to provide good services. So I think that's very, very apropos. Deborah says, love the book and many conversations that support the journeys, our journeys daily. Courageous Conversations Connect. And really, the tagline is a pathway to reset our mindsets with intentional thoughts from the inside out. Inside out. And then when Mark and I talked about that, he was like, "Oh, that's a long tagline." I was like, "But I'm entitled, and that's what I want to say." Right, Matt?
Right. Well, it's clear. I mean, everything starts within you. You can't change a racist. You can't legislate a racist to stop being a racist. He or she has to do that internally, make that decision to make change. Okay. What you can do to mitigate that is if you, again, vote down ballot. Vote your legislature. It all starts.
Yes.
All the local. It's there's somebody. People that say, "Oh, I only vote for the big elections." Well, that's foolish. That's foolishness. Is what it is. You have to understand how the political structure works in this country and in your local municipality. Understand what that means. The judges, the attorney generals, all that.
They're setting policy.
Many people, your council persons, your block captains. I mean, this is how the sausage is made. It's drilled down on it. And I think we have to be honest with you. People get lazy. They don't want to do the work. They don't want to do the homework. They don't want to do enough.
Do the research.
With the stuff not happening.
Can't complain if you don't vote.
If the trash ain't picked up, if you don't vote for your council person.
Right.
You don't know who your council person is. You don't know who your committee person is. You don't know who your block captain person is. You don't know any of this stuff. Well, listen, you can't get anything done if you don't know.
So a lot of times people are surviving. They're surviving, but that's not an excuse. I'm not suggesting that that's an excuse. I'm just saying that then we have to find other ways, which then goes into how do we organize? How do we start developing a sense of hope and a sense of a faith that we can actually do something different.
Stephanie says, our boss said voting economics. Exactly, Stephanie, voting economics.
Mm-hmm.
The question, what does Daryl say? I've been preaching that for years. Social economics is key. Absolutely, Daryl. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, Daryl. What else does Stephanie say? Correct. Money is a tool. We have work to do. We have work to do with our money and our voting power. Absolutely correct.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely correct.
Mm-hmm.
Megan says, podcast, what's that? Uni
Therapy 2 on Anchor.fm. Okay. All right. Awesome.
Got it. Yeah, so, and Bartley says what? Let's see. Go ahead, read Bartley's.
Bishop Bartley says, it's hard to purge when the trauma from the daily events across our country are making us feel overwhelmed. The fear associated with Corona, the confusion associated with political corruption, and now the anger of brutality are all emotions permeating our community. Our community needs help. Thanks for the forum. Keep crew going. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you. And you are so right when you talk about this concept of like purging or dealing with our trauma. That's why I call it continual traumatic stress disorder. Like, think about the words. It's a continual trauma that continues to stress us out and ultimately becoming a disorder. But that means that we have to sort of start trying to the best of our ability to take our power back, whatever that looks like. Start empowering ourselves, because the voicelessness comes from feeling disempowered, if you will. Begin to the self-care of prayer and mindfulness and meditation, externalizing our emotions, acknowledging that our feelings are valid, and even using the social media platforms within reason in a healthy way. If that's the only way that you can purge, then go to work and either put a podcast, or not a podcast, a talk out, share. I've saw that a couple nights, or start typing and express your feelings in that way. And we have to create allies so that we don't feel like we're alone in this fight. And I keep saying, from the perspective of racial and cultural inequities, we need everybody, all hands on deck, so that we can build bridges versus breaking barriers, or build bridges and break barriers. Break barriers. Netta, thank you, Morgan. One young man also needs to share if they have encountered without incident, and how they managed it at the time and will manage it going forward. At this point, it is not if, but when it will happen. Exactly. They need to share in this effort, just like they share stats and thoughts about social events and activities.
Exactly. I mean, it needs to be, the same way, we do things about rites of passage for young men, to teach them how to tie a tie and how to say yes, ma'am, and yes, sir, and no, ma'am, and no, sir, and how to shake a hand firmly and everything else.
Yeah, that was what John Taylor was talking about.
Along with that needs to be understand, how do they comport themselves when they come in contact and engage with authority, more specifically the police. I know it's unfair. Kids shouldn't have to walk around with that burden. It is a school of thought now. A lot of people are talking about, well, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't talk about racism no more to our kids, because they have layer of fear. I want them to walk around free, whatever. Look,
and they're going to be uneducated.
Yes, if your Black son or grandson or nephew does not understand how the world looks at him and how to comport himself and navigate this terrain, he will absolutely come up against it and won't have the tools to be able to respond properly that keeps him safe. Again, the goal, keep that Black man safe.
And Black women.
But Black women. We're not dismissing Black women, but all right, everybody. But we understand that the Black man's under attack. Mm-hmm. And we have to deal with it. We have to have the conversation. We can't bury our heads under the sand and not explore this conversation and make sure that he understands his value, and his value means to be safe and to come home safe. And when he has that encounter, because it will happen, okay, he needs to be prepared, have the toolkit, the mind, the mental toughness, the mental fortitude, the strength to be able to think in the moment, not react in the moment.
Yes.
Because action gets, if you have a racist in his mind that he wants to give it to you, he will use anything to be able to use to then take it to the next level.
And you would say he or she, because remember Amy Cooper, the woman with the dog the other day,
Exactly. I mean, she knew what she was saying. She knew. If I say, "Oh, I've got a big black scary African American man," we look back at you. If you go and have her voice quiver and all, that's what it evokes. Oh my God! Immediate response to what? Mm-hmm. To what?
Yeah, to possibly this Black man's life.
If the brother wasn't taping, again, that's our best security. And even at that, when you have a tape, we can see that they'll still get acquitted. And or depends on who the judge is and the jury is, can still be acquitted, and there will be no justice. So but you rather have and not need than need not have. Tapes help, at least gives you a fighting chance, is what we're trying to say. And so Again, it's exhausting. It's tiring, but we have to have the conversation. We have to have the talk. We have to deal with this stuff every day. We have to be vigilant in making sure our young brothers and sisters come home safe. Because
And if you can't have the talk, babe, if you can't do it yourself, or you need tools, strategies, therapeutic intervention, a spiritual advisor, as I said, a confidant. If maybe you're a single mom and you have a son and you want to have that talk, but you might enlist a man to have that conversation with them because they've been through it before, like yourself. And you've gotten called several times by people, who we weren't necessarily related to, and they were like, "Listen, I need you to talk to my son about X, Y, Z."
Right.
Larissa says, "We appreciate you and Morgan for all that you do. You have been a blessing to the community and our country." Wow.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you
so much.
We are blessed to be a blessing. Morgan and I are truly blessed. And 11 weeks ago, we're like, what can we do? I'm seeing clients all day or what have you. Yes, we can create this courageous conversation on this platform, this space for Quarantine Talk. So we are appreciative of you. You all give us energy and hope and life and faith as well. Sylvia says the Black race is still under attack. It has never stopped.
Yeah.
And we need to know that and feel that and then do something about it in a healthy way. Velvet says that those days are over. Conversations need to be shared with everyone from babies to the elders.
Absolutely.
Yep. Absolutely. Let's
see here.
And Charlotte says the lady with the lady with Dig was straight racist and
with the dog.
With the dog. Yeah. See, it's hard for me.
The lady,
exactly all right.
Yeah. It's funny when you're reading posts, you gotta be sort of like be able to be nimble enough to understand that somebody have a typo, somebody have fat fingers, and it's part of the technology. It's part of the technology.
The lady with the dog was straight racist and working the fear tactic. And, it doesn't have to be somebody in the park, right? It can be the person in your workplace, in the next cubicle, or your boss.
What you said about, listen, microaggressions, right?
The microaggressions happen all the time. I could tell you some stories about working in an institution of the PWI, predominantly white institution, for almost 2 decades. And the microaggressions that take a toll on you. But you got to be strong. You got to have faith. As our good friend Gene Austin Jefferson says, faith and fear cannot reside in the same space. So you got to rely on your faith. And then you have to align yourself with allies of all races, because we have to be in this together. We need both. When we're talking about Morgan's talking about voting power, we need us all. We need us all. Every single race to be voting with regards to our conscience and also with regards to what we want to change in America, in the United States.
The number came out a while ago, obviously, that Pennsylvania was lost, I believe it was 40,000 votes.
30. I think it was 30. I think
it makes it even worse. It's no way you're going to tell me that there wasn't 30,000 people, Black people in Philadelphia that didn't vote, that had the right to vote, qualified to vote, and registered to vote. They chose not to vote.
I was canvassing right here in Germantown, and people were saying that they're not going to vote.
But see, that's what I mean. You understand? And then they want to complain. The power is within us. We have the power to change. This man would not be in office spewing out the crap if we voted.
If we voted.
If there wasn't those numbers of people who were disinfected Bernie voters. I know there's schools of thought. It wasn't that and it wasn't this. Listen, it was a collective.
We have power.
Fault.
We have more power than we realize.
Whether it was the white suburban women that didn't vote or chose to vote for Trump, combined with those disaffected Bernie people that didn't vote, or just folks who just plain ignorant and don't understand that they feel as though I'd rather remove myself or not participate in the system, for whatever reason. Listen, we got what we got, and we have 4 years of it, and see how much damage 4 years can do. So
now we need to be in a state of repair. and
we're dumped
restoration.
here. We're dumped here, and we're forced to deal with stuff. And you can't control what Mother Nature does. You can't control a pandemic. Although warnings were given, things were in place to set it up to be able to deal with it. But if you have a certain person or a person with a different agenda who doesn't care, who's not empathetic, can choose not about what they choose to do, but it's the very nature of choosing not to do. That when the pandemic comes, we're not prepared and we're not ready to respond properly. Hence, you have over 100,000 people dead. Many of them unnecessarily dead, okay, because of a lack of response. They said 1 week would have made a difference. 1 week earlier response would have made a difference. So, I mean, you
want to read what Joe says, and then we're gonna.
What you saying, Joe? He says we have these types of conversations with our real talk young men all the time. We also empower them by letting them know that they have advocates who will fight with and for them when they encounter racism in school or in the streets. Absolutely, man. That's another key, making sure they feel they have a safe environment to go to, that they have reciprocity, they have a resource to tap into to help them be able to process all that, and to help them be able to defend all that and fight that. Again, we must be, I say all the time, we must be fit for the fight. What does that mean, fit? Well, not just physically fit, emotionally fit, financially fit, politically fit. When you're fit for the fight, you gotta be fit in several phases for this fight. It takes effort. It's going to take effort and take a level of involvement, getting deeper, stretching yourself. Putting forth the right effort. Galvanizing us as a people. I think this is galvanizing us. Maybe this is a tipping point. Maybe this is a tipping point again, because we're all focused in on the media feed and so forth, what's going on, and as I said earlier, it's the volume of it all is happening within 48 hours of each other, within a week of each other. It's one thing after another thing after another thing. So now we have the preponderance of the evidence of violence against us, and so I think that's going to help us. I hope that helps us. I pray that helps us. I pray that helps us to move and fight with our vote and fight with our pockets. That's really it.
All right. So, we
I
will,
want
to leave you guys with just some things that you can do over the weekend. We will be back here on Monday at 10 a.m. for the Courageous Conversations Connect Quarantine Talks. And we're going to have some really good conversation for all of us. I say all of us because we are in this together. We're in this conversation together as our one crew, connecting relationships for epic wins. So, if you're continuing to have these conversations, which I know are exhausting, remember to take care of yourself. Remember not to go down the rabbit hole with folks. Remember to protect your peace. Remember to, pay attention to what your messaging is. What's your ultimate end game here? Is it really to, impart knowledge to your children? So stay there, or is it to, share your feelings and your emotions? Okay, stay there. But be intentional about what it is that you want to communicate, and be intentional about putting your oxygen mask on first. Take a time out if you need to. Don't watch the news 24/7. And if you need to process in a healthy way with people. And if you're angry or you have a particular emotion or a cadre of emotions, be able to name them, articulate those emotions, journal those emotions, and then be about the business. Once you've processed and once you've engaged in some self-care and some healing, let's go to work. Let's galvanize, let's organize, let's take action in a healthy way. Let your vote speak for yourself. Let your advocacy speak for yourself, and let your activism speak for yourself. Let's raise up our voices. Let's stand up. Let's speak up and let's show up. All right. Oxygen mask on first is what Mama Stokes says that I always say. Yeah, when you want me to more comments before, Daryl said, Charlotte said, thank you. Have a great weekend. Daryl says, this is a shameless plug, but superblackpages.com. I created this a few years ago, and it is dormant. It is free. That's Daryl. Yeah, Daryl, go back out. Yeah, it says it's free for Black business owners. This is a great time to pull it off the shelf and make it available. Yes, it is. So make it available. It's a great time for that. Anyway, okay, Nicole says yes to the oxygen mask. Next one, more. Deborah says, thank you, RG Morgan. Joe says, thanks, guys. Have a great weekend. Tanya, may I get your email again? Yes, my email is, we'll put it in the chat. It's drrg@connectionsmatterllc.com. drrg@connectionsmatterllc.com. You all please go over to our YouTube page and subscribe and let your friends know, and also pass on this actual this quarantine talk. Share it with others on your platform so that on Monday we'd love to have twice the number of people on this platform. We want to double it every single week, or even triple it, so that more people come into the space, and that we work on our own healing, our wholeness, on our mental wellness. All right. Well, thank you so much. Joe says amen. Larissa says great show. Megan says great topic. Thank you, guys. We love you. There's nothing you can do about it. Great tips. Have a wonderful Thursday, Friday, and weekend on purpose. From my heart, our heart to yours.